I woke up to chaos. The beeping of monitors, the blinding hospital lights, and a nurse leaning over me with a strange look on her face. But it wasn't the crash that had me spiraling. It was her question. "Do you know what your wife has been doing?" Those words snapped me awake, the memory of the accident flooding back. The headlights, the rain, Anna's silence. It wasn't just the truck that collided with us that night. Something far worse had shattered, though I didn't know it yet. Anna and I had been returning from what should have been a celebration, our 8th anniversary. But the dinner was strained, the conversation forced. She'd spent most of the night on her phone, brushing off my questions with vague excuses. I remember thinking, maybe she's planning a surprise. I wanted to believe that, even as my gut told me otherwise. The rain came down in torrents as we drove home. She barely spoke, staring at her phone, her face illuminated by the screen. Every so often, she'd smirk or type furiously. "Who are you texting?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Just work stuff," she said, locking the screen quickly. That answer should have reassured me. It didn't. We were just a few blocks from home when the truck ran the red light. I remember shouting, Anna's scream, the violent crunch of metal. Then, nothing. When I woke up in the hospital, everything hurt. My head throbbed. My ribs felt like they were on fire, and my left arm was in a cast. But my first thought wasn't about the pain. It was about Anna. "Where's my wife?" I croaked. "She's stable," the nurse replied. "She's in another room." Relief washed over me, until the nurse hesitated. She looked like she wanted to say more but stopped herself. That's when the anxiety set in. Hours passed, and Anna didn't come to see me. Not even a text. My mind raced with excuses. Maybe she was too injured. Maybe she was asleep. But the nurse's earlier question echoed in my mind. What did she mean? When I was finally well enough to be wheeled to Anna's room, I expected relief. Instead, I walked into a nightmare. Anna was sitting up, her phone in her hands, typing furiously. When she saw me, she flinched, quickly locking the screen. "Oh, thank God you're awake," she said, her voice too cheerful, too forced. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. That's when I saw it. Her phone had buzzed just before she locked it, and for a split second, I caught the name. Jason. "Who's Jason?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. "Just someone from work," she said quickly, too quickly. Her tone was defensive, and she avoided my gaze. That's when the first crack appeared in the facade. Over the next few days, the tension between us grew unbearable. Anna was glued to her phone, always locking the screen whenever I was near. When I asked about Jason, she dismissed it as paranoia. But the late-night whispers, the furtive glances, they painted a different picture. One night, as I lay awake pretending to sleep, I overheard her on the phone. "I can't talk right now," she whispered. "He's still here. I'll call you later." My chest tightened. I'd heard enough. Once we were home, I needed answers. While she was in the shower, I unlocked her phone. What I found destroyed me. Messages with Jason, dozens of them. Plans to meet. Explicit texts. Her words were filled with a passion and vulnerability I hadn't seen in years. They'd been having an affair for months, maybe longer. When she came out of the bathroom, I was waiting, her phone in my hand. "Explain this," I said, my voice shaking with a mix of rage and heartbreak. Her face turned pale. Then the excuses came. "You've been so distant," she said. I felt invisible. Jason made me feel alive. Every word was a knife in my chest. For years, we'd both been trapped in a loop of routine. I worked late to provide for us, thinking I was doing the right thing, but I had stopped asking her how she felt or what she needed. Maybe part of me had assumed she was fine because I was too scared to hear otherwise. And Anna? She didn't tell me. Maybe she didn't know how, or maybe she didn't think I'd listen. Instead, she found someone who would. We tried therapy, but the damage was too great. Every session was a reminder of her betrayal. Every exercise a futile attempt to rebuild something irreparably broken. Eventually, we decided to separate. Weeks later, I received an anonymous email. Attached were photos of Anna and Jason together. Nights she claimed to be working late or visiting family. But it wasn't the photos that shook me, it was the caption. "He's not who you think he is." Curiosity got the better of me, and I started digging. Jason wasn't just some coworker. He had a history of preying on married women, leaving a trail of wrecked relationships in his wake. Anna wasn't his first, and I doubted she'd be his last. That revelation didn't erase the pain, but it shifted something inside me. Her betrayal wasn't about me. It was about her insecurities, her choices, and the cracks we both ignored for years. And Jason? He was a manipulator, a predator who thrived on vulnerability. For the first time in months, I felt free. The scars, both physical and emotional, would take time to heal, but I knew I'd be stronger for it. I realized I wasn't alone in this experience. So many people feel unseen, unappreciated, or stuck in a relationship where communication has broken down. And while it hurt to lose Anna, I knew I couldn't stay in something that destroyed me. That crash might have destroyed my marriage, but it also forced me to rebuild myself. And maybe, just maybe, it was the beginning of something better, something real.